Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the Ibrox Journal podcast on the Rangers Journal, sponsored by Off to the Match I Go. You can tell it's been a long season, can't you? We'll get into a little bit of competition with Off to the Match I Go very shortly, but we started the season with a draw in Edinburgh, and we've ended the season with a draw in Edinburgh. So we've kind of come full circle. So we'll be discussing Ferguson's departure, another referee in howler, Bomber Brown, and of course the pod's title tonight is Where We Went Wrong. So it'd be rude not to look at the games that kind of cost us points this season. We might be here all night. Well, with me this fine evening to discuss all this, it's first of all, Jock. How you doing, big man?
I'm good, Andrew. How's yourself?
Yeah, I'm glad the season's over now. I'm just glad we can potentially maybe enjoy a little bit of the summer. But yes, I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. And also, Doug, the man, myth, the legend, the statistician. How you doing, Doug? Oh, can you hear us, Doug? Can you hear us, Doug? Is that a cardboard? I think that's a cardboard out of Doug.
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
There we go.
That's like you say, glad the season's over and we can look forward to the next one.
Yeah, and hopefully, you know what, as you know, I don't think it could be any worse than this season, can it? There's a lot on the horizon, so that'll be good. Now, before we start, Rangers Journal does have a giveaway, so you can either win a brand new Rangers home top, which I am currently wearing here, or a Colin Steen and Willie Johnson signed picture. So all you have to do is to subscribe to the Rangers Journal on YouTube. So head over to YouTube, find the Rangers Journal, and do subscribe, and then head to Facebook and like Off to the Match I Go's page, and then all you have to do is head to the Rangers Journal's Twitter page, retweet their post, which is pinned, which will explain all this as well. And then just underneath that, you can post the evidence that's a screenshot of you subscribing to the Rangers Journal on YouTube and a screenshot of you liking the Off to the Match I Go on Facebook. So you get 10% off the Match I Go of all products with the promo code Journal10. As I say, all information's on the Rangers Journal Twitter page at Rangers Journal, and it is the pinned post, so all the information is there. Right, so of course, we had our final game of the season there. As I said, we went full circle with a draw in Edinburgh, something we're a little bit accustomed to these days. And of course, after the game, Barry Ferguson, the club put out a statement saying that Barry Ferguson had left the club. And Barry Ferguson, that included the management team of McCann, Billy Dodds, and of course Alan McGregor. Now, Barry Ferguson had some comments to say. I've already lived the dream as a player and as a captain of Rangers, and to do so as a head coach in these last 3 months has been an enormous honour for me. There have been some ups, there's been some downs, and I've loved the experience it's given, and I've given it all my all throughout. I want to thank Neil, Billy, and Alan, the 3 staff members who came in with me, and all the other staff who have supported me during my time in charge. Indeed, from everyone at the training centre and Ibrox, the backing I've received has been phenomenal. Above all, I want to thank our supporters. There is no doubt this has been a difficult season, but the backing the team and I have continued to receive in spite of that has been incredible. I have said no matter how this period panned out, I would always remain a committed supporter of the club, and I look forward to remaining a Rangers ambassador. I wish whoever becomes the new manager every success in the job. Also, Patrick Stewart did have some comments to say as well. He says, we'll be forever grateful to Barry for stepping up and taking the role of head coach. He and his staff have performed admirably amongst some trying circumstances and achieved some excellent results along the way. So, Jock, it's kind of expected, wasn't it? Did you expect it so soon, especially after Barry's comments when he was kind of throwing his hat in the ring for the job?
To be fair, I was quite surprised it came out on a Sunday. Usually these sort of things are hang around until the Monday, don't they? But I think it was all there needed to say, really, wasn't there? It's a thanks very much, cheerio kind of statement, wasn't it? Really not much else you can say about it.
Yeah, not a lot at all. It's kind of what we expected, and just kind of sets the wheels in motion, doesn't it, for the new manager coming in. Now, we've been led to believe it could be imminent within the next 2 weeks. We keep hearing different days, different things. It does sound like there is definitely someone in the pipeline, or at least between 1 to 3 candidates. Talksport obviously did put out a tweet earlier today where they reckoned that there was a shortlist of 5 candidates, which was David Ancelotti, Steven Gerrard, Russell Martin, Ryan Mason, Rob Edwards. But you know what? I think a lot of this is just kind of guesswork at the minute, and people can put 2 and 2 together. Doug, we just were reading out the comments from Barry Ferguson there, and of course Patrick Stewart. Any surprises for you there? Obviously, Barry, his kind of contract's ended. The season hasn't quite ended, but it's ended for us. Guess what you expect? Oh, I think Doug might still be having issues. You have an issue still, Doug? There we go. Just like Rangers season, falling apart. There we go. Doug there for a minute just while he's sorting some things out, but yeah, so obviously we did play there at the weekend.
No, I don't think it's too surprising. He's I don't think it's anything too surprising. He's unhappy to not get the job, obviously, but
I think there's a bit of a delay with you there, Doug.
Yeah.
Probably about 2 minutes, I think, mate. There we go. I think he's going to have to try and join us again. So, of course, we're not going to fully get into the game at the weekend. The game is what it was. Another kind of disappointing result. However, once again, I think we've got to look towards the officiating. Of course, we were utterly perplexed with that asking goal. It just absolutely unbelievable. He was described, Nick Walsh has been described as appalling just days before by Des Roach for essentially relegating St Johnstone with a terrible decision to award Ross County a penalty in stoppage time. Obviously you were on the post-match after the game, Jock. What was your kind of thoughts now? I know I did hear your initial thoughts, but what are your thoughts kind of now on it? What were the main feelings for you there?
Where do you start, really? I mean, it's just another catalogue of errors that shouldn't be in this day and age in 2025. We shouldn't be talking about this kind of stuff, particularly when we have VAR. Now, I know we don't have the goal line technology, but surely whenever they were setting the VAR system up, surely they think, right, we need to be cute where we put our cameras here to assist this in case that happens, to try and cover that. Clearly they haven't. And then we've had VAR for 2 years now, 2.5 years, because we got it in October, didn't we? We never got it at the start of the season. We had to wait and play so much of the season without it, which I kind of thought was a bit weird at the time. But then I suppose contractors and all that kind of stuff, time frames and things kind of roll on, so you just have to sort of go with it. And then Barry's comments obviously after the game as well, saying that he was baffled and he doesn't want to get in trouble. And look at obviously what's happening now by Bomber Brown as well. It's just, if you could sum up Scottish football in a nutshell, that's basically it. That's the sort of stuff that we as fans have to put up with on a weekly basis, basically, between contentious decisions, poor officiating, poor use of the VAR system, poor use of understanding of the rules. It's just, well, where do we draw the line, and where are we seeing the improvements that were promised? Whenever Colin does these monthly YouTube discussions where he's and it's always, we're all going to get better, we must improve, but we're not seeing it. We're not seeing any improvement.
That's almost become like getting dragged in front of the headmaster for doing something bad, doesn't it? The Willie Collins kind of thing, because it's just absolute mess. And it's not just us that's affected. Granted, we've always seemed to be affected with some major decision that defines the game, but a lot of other teams affected, like, of course, St Johnstone the other night. Now, don't get me wrong, the way I've looked at this, Nick Walsh might not necessarily see from where he's standing. There could be a player in the way. You can understand that. But you see the linesman's got a fairly decent view of it. And the fact that VAR can seem to find the same footage that Sky Sports had, which is very worrying because you see the ball hit the inside of the side of the net when it ripples.
But
And
Andrew,
then,
that's not the first time that's happened. We've had that in Old Firm games whenever Dessers got tripped. Remember, Dessers got tripped. The Celtic defender tripped, but the VAR only showed one angle, but Sky were showing 3 other different angles, which was conclusive in our favour. But the VAR only showed the referee the one angle, and it took him 8 seconds to decide, no, that's a foul. Where in fact it should have been a goal. So it's like you say, how's Sky able to do that, or why is Sky and the VAR team, if Sky's recording the match and reporting it for Scotland and the Scottish FA, why are they not able to say, right, okay, here's another angle? I just don't get it. There's no clarity at all with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Doug's still having some issues there, so we'll try and bring Doug into it. Oh, Doug's there. Let's see. Can you hear us, Doug?
Hello.
That's better. That's better. What a guy. You looks like you've had to change rooms, change venues for it. But we're just talking about, of course, the goal that never was, Raskin's finish, which would have put us 2-0 up at that point. Now, as Jock was saying there, I think we're getting a bit accustomed to these type of bad game-changing decisions, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I think you touched on it yourself. We're going to maybe look at some stats of things tonight, or talk about the shift and difference between clubs. I think you just need to look at the difference between, for example, penalties. Like last season, we had a mountain of penalties, and this season that is completely evaporated. Like it's just a really bizarre statistical swing to go from so many to so few. Now, part of that will be an impact to our per play. We've not attacked as well this season as we did previously, and part of the statistical likelihood of getting your penalties are from that kind of aspect. But we're still a largely dominant team. We've still scored a lot of goals, and spend most of our time in an attacking kind of provision. So to go from one straight to the other is a bit strange. And then, like you say, there is this feeling that has been there for a while now that referees just don't seem, for whatever reason, and I certainly don't believe in like conspiracies or anything, but whether it's a subconscious thing, they just don't seem to be able to give what appear to be obvious fouls at times or obvious decisions to us. They need the comfort of VAR in particular for things like penalties to kind of give them that reassurance. Okay, it's definitely the right decision. I can give this. And there is, I think, this just underlying issue that one side of the city makes a massive din when decisions are wrong and impact them, and the other side, i.e., we, just don't. And I think ultimately that's going to have a psychological effect, be that subconscious or otherwise, on referees. If they think that if I give this decision, my life's going to be hell for the next week and 2 weeks. My family can be impacted, as we have seen in the past as well. So
See, I
need to take a bit of a more a grip of the media narrative around it.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you, Doug. See, I struggle with conspiracy chat, and I do. I've seen, don't get me wrong, I think we've been affected more by a lot more decisions over the past couple of seasons. You just have to look over the past couple of seasons with all firm games, the amount of goals we've had chopped off, game-changing goals in cup finals, offside goals awarded in cup finals. Don't get me wrong, we know how poor Scottish official officiating is. There is a side to it where I think officials are, rather than give the decision there and then, I think a lot of the time they're waiting on VAR to intervene and go, look, it's this, so they can be sure. Now, you talk about unconscious things there, Doug. I'll got to be honest, and I don't want to sound like this person, but Jock, think a lot of this started to change after a certain back page headline that said refs are of a deep concern after a certain team's AGM. Now, I'm not saying that there is any sort of conspiracy or anything, but it just seemed when there was pressure placed on the SFA and SPFL and the refereeing setup, things started to change. Would you not say, Jock?
It's the usual narrative, isn't it? It's something happens in a game. More often than not, an Old Firm game, or if not in the lead up to an Old Firm game, something happens, and the usual people are out in the for a certain side. Are out and they're using their columns and they're using their radio spots to push a narrative and push an agenda, and it works. And it's been working for at least a decade, maybe longer. I can remember. And if it's not ex-players doing it or people within the media, it's a manager who does it. And we've seen the weight that happened, the weight he carried earlier in the season. What happened there, everybody knows what happened there. Guy lost his job because of it. So I think it's time that Rangers have started to sort of make sounds in the press and come out and call things out and ask questions. We just need to do more of it. We just need to go blow for blow, because it's the only way. It's going to get the attention of the other clubs in the league to say, look, they're right. We need to stand up and we need to, as a collective, push for improvement for the officiating, because it's going to come back and it's going to bite another club sometime. And it did earlier or last week with that handball. It should have been a handball. That's costing Johnson.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time before I think we'll see another referee strike for the next couple of years. Sure, we had that. Oh, was it 15, 12, 15 years ago?
2011. I want to say 2011. Yeah.
Something like that. And we had good referees coming in from around Europe to referee, all because of one side had a narrative pushed and there was safety concerns, which is rightly so, because they shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place. The standard needs to improve, and so far, for what we're seeing, it doesn't seem to be doing any good so far this year. Definitely not, even with VAR, which is a big concern for me.
It's a very big concern, Doug, that when you have an instant replay from Sky TV, now obviously Sky's, well, sorry, it wasn't even Sky, but I imagine the wholesale production company, I used to be Sunset Vine. I don't know who it is now these days, but whoever kind of records the game footage for the broadcasters, they seem to able to bring up the accurate replay quite quickly, to the point where you're screaming at the TV, and to the point where obviously Bomber Brown made it comments because it was that clear. How can VAR not see that? How can they not see that image? We haven't heard any audio now. Obviously, they have started to release audio for certain situations. We had it for the League Cup final, which actually made more questions than answers, because it didn't answer anything. It actually just showed how much of a mess the whole thing was, especially when somebody does shout penalty, and just gets completely ignored. But do you think technology could be an issue here? Obviously, we used to have the Hawkeye in Hampden, didn't we, in the cup tournaments? But obviously, that seems to have been sacrificed, because it's probably £8 too expensive over, when you've got VAR. Do you think technology's at play here that's not able to give the officials what they need to see? Are they using separate cameras? Surely they're not. Can you hear me, Doug?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it was one of those things that it kind of jolted me into remembering, oh yeah, we don't have goal line tech, because that's something that's it's in every other football I watch that I can think of, and that would have cleared it up in an instant, because the refs watch would have buzzed and that would have been the end of it. So I mean, again, that's something that I sat there thinking, yeah, that's a good point. Why don't we have that? That seems like such a basic thing in football now, that, as I say, would clear that up in an instant. I mean, on the VAR thing, it's not the first time we've been bitten by the referee potentially not getting to see the right angles Obviously, there's the second leg of the Dortmund match, where apparently they didn't get to see the rear angle when Morelos steals the ball for Kent's goal that would have won us the game. Now, albeit that wasn't a defining thing, but it still irks me to this day that we should have beat Dortmund 2-2. So, in terms of the angles type of thing, that's obviously maybe not something that's just a Scottish football thing, because that was obviously a European game. But like you say, if the angles exist, then why aren't the referees getting them? Like you say, it's a central company that's filming it and distributes it to who needs it. Well, the referees need it, so as far as I'm concerned, all the footage that's available should be getting made available to the referees to see, so that they can make a best decision. Because that's the whole point, is for them to have these extra views and this extra ability to look twice and go, actually no, or actually yes.
See, the thing is, I've kind of started talking about this just because I think that, you got to look at all angles to see why the goal couldn't have been awarded. I do believe they get all the same angles, and they can, access it and rewind it and also sorts at their leisure. So I'll be honest with you, I don't think it is to do with that. It's just utterly bizarre, and we're getting to the point now where it's, yeah, all right, it was an end of season game, it didn't exactly cost us, but it did cost us a couple of points. Against a team where we drew against them last time at Easter Road. You start to just look at bad officiating, and the fact is, it's not just bad officiating. You could probably look at a chunk of points and go, this is the exact amount of points you've lost due to poor decisions. It's become annoying, and we're not the only team, and I will say that we're not the only team. St Johnstone, now relegated to the Championship, are in and it looks like they're in a bit of a financial situation now because of, them being down in the lower league. Now, good comment here from Stevie. Guy, get your comments in. We'll go through some of them a little bit later on. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Rangers Journal. They're asking goal at the weekend. It's either gross incompetence or it's cheating. Neither are acceptable in a professional game. Refs like Walsh are amateurs. And I think it's that last part there. Refs like Walsh are amateurs. They do seem to be like amateurs. And I'll be honest, I think even some amateurs would probably be better. We are not seeing good referees coming through the ranks. We're not seeing that anymore. And I'm not talking about refs that have got any sort of bias towards one team or another. Of course, referees come through and have probably supported a team in Scotland growing up. I don't think a lot of them look at, making a decision to not award somebody something, when you're doing your job. I honestly look at things like that and think, well, you wouldn't in your job. But then there is that side you have to start looking and going, well, what is the reason? What is the reason? Why is there so many mistakes? And Willie Collins has to come out and kind of stand there, like a child in front of the headmaster going, oh yeah, here we go again. There's another one. Obviously, people have, said that this having Willie Collins there has improved things. The only thing I've seen improve is we just don't seem to get any penalties anymore. And we seem to have the harsh end of the deal. Now, I know, Doug, you mentioned the goal against Dortmund that was chopped off. I think with that one at the time, I remember I did some research and I was really digging around. The letter of the law, if you kind of go in and nick a ball away from a defender who's mid-swing going to kick the ball, believe it or not, they will award the free kick the other way. It's a stupid rule. I hate it. And there's been a couple of times I've seen teams caught out with it. It's stupid. It's one that needs changing, because end of the day, if you've been clever enough and quick enough to nick in there before the defender is, it's not your fault. You've just got kicked. But hopefully we'll see that change in the next few years. But yeah, so obviously Bomber Brown made some comments at the time on RTV, which, I think is just out of sheer absolute frustration. I think he's sick of seeing all this stuff that we're seeing as well. So obviously you heard today that the compliance officer was looking into these comments. The compliance officer, I did not know that position had been filled, Jock. I have heard the compliance officer for about 2 or 3 seasons. I don't know if the compliance officer was there when, Hibs TV, got into a little bit of hot water with Irvin Welsh. Dave Morello should be cut up and sent to different parts of the world. Jock?
Yeah, I thought that they were doing away with that.
That's
I
what I
thought
thought.
that was done, and they were trying to move away from that. I was actually this morning trying to see if I could see if there's something alternative in like other leagues, but I think they word it differently within the governing bodies. I was looking at the Premier League. There's like another legal term, but I can never remember the English Premier League having to refer to the compliance officer, whereas in Scotland, up until obviously I think it was about 2 years ago, there was somebody up in front of the compliance officer on the Monday or the Tuesday after the Saturday because they've had a red card or there's something's went on during a game, and again, it's just something that it just highlights how farcical the governing body that runs our football league is. When we've got, like you say, you're talking about like being rolled out in front of a head teacher. That's basically what the compliance officer is, isn't it? Like, there's 3 of them on a panel, and the club has to go and beg for leniency on whatever decision the referees went, and more often than not, it was very rarely overturned unless it was something glaringly obvious. But again, it's just, to me, it's just something I think we need to be better. We need to govern better, and we need to ref better.
Yeah, totally agree, Jock. Obviously, Ryan, fellow podder, lost out on a trophy. Points is another thing. Do you know what? It's even just a trophy. It's been about 3. Being honest, that's just in recent history. And don't get me wrong, I don't catalogue everything. I'm not some mad guy that sits in a basement cataloguing everything. But think to yourself, well, actually, if you started to work it all out, we do seem to be a bit of a disadvantage. Now, it could be that, officials maybe think sometimes, in some games, oh, Rangers will probably eventually win. Maybe we'll give, not necessarily a handicap to an opposing team, but like a Dundee United, I might say, all right, might let them away with a couple of fouls to start with, try and keep the game, as even as possible. But that is being refereed to a different standard. I'm not saying that happens exactly. I'm not sure what goes through referees' minds during these games, and I'm not sure what goes through some officials' minds, like Nick Walsh, especially with that penalty award. But there we are. Obviously, Bomber Brown's comments, as I was saying there, have kind of been picked up by the compliance officer who was woke up out of a 2-year sleep. And some spokesperson for the club told the Rangers Review earlier some comments about it. In a season where Rangers have been on the receiving end of several major officiating errors, frustration is entirely understandable. The idea that spontaneous remarks could warrant disciplinary action is excessive, surprising, and inconsistent. This development should not overshadow what was a clear mistake, evident to anyone who's seen the footage of the game. The focus should be on raising refereeing standards for the good Scottish football. Should a charge follow, we will defend it and question whether club channels across the league are being monitored and policed equally. So they are very strong words, and actually quite surprising words that I saw today. So Doug, what do you reckon to that kind of those words from a Rangers spokesperson who seems to be unnamed at the minute? Can you hear us, Doug?
Yeah, I just can't get myself off mute. Yeah, I mean, the whole it's one of these things that annoys me, because it's one of these things that we just don't need happening. Bomber needs to be smarter when he's on TV, basically, because if he believes that, that's fair enough. But I think you need to be smarter than that when you're saying those type of things, because it's going to get us in trouble, and he should know that as well. Whether or not it would get everyone is equally in trouble, I don't know. There are some that might have opinions on that, but yeah, I think if you're coming out, and it's the same in any position. If you're a manager, you're doing a post match, and you come out and go, "Oh, that referee's obviously corrupt you for not giving that goal." It's the same thing. Basically, it's just asking for trouble. He needs to be a little bit smarter with those remarks, but It's done now. Like you say, I'll be interested to see what happens with the compliance officer. It's one of those roles that they do have a day-to-day role and involved in the normal sort of stuff like um, overturning incorrect decisions and that kind of jazz. But then they've just got like these little peripheral extras that they can do, and picking and choosing things to pull out is one of them. I don't know what kind of punishment they can distill. He's not a player. He's not a manager. So whether that, is that going to be? Are we going to get some kind of warning? Is some kind of fine? Is that going to come to the club? I don't know. And then can we fight that on the basis that, well, he's just on TV. We can't control exactly what he's saying on a live broadcast.
To be fair, with that, it is interesting to note as well that Tom Miller did straight away kind of say no, basically along the lines of that's not the opinion of RTV or Rangers essentially. So really, it's kind of been dealt with in a sense because it's been corrected on air. Sorry, Doug, I sorry to interrupt you there. Just thought I'd say that, but
no, I mean that's exactly what I was going to say. Is just like it's dealt with at the time by saying, oh, we can't say that. So it's not as if the club endorsed what he said. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this pans out. It kind of feels like it might, I don't know, it might just turn into nothing. But I'll be very interested to see if they actually try and put something forward, and as I say, how and who they try and apply any punishment to, if that's where they choose to go.
Be interesting to see who doesn't go on holiday straight away from the SFA or the SPFL. So let's put it that way. Obviously we're not going to touch too much on the game yesterday. Obviously, we had a game-changing decision, which would have put us 2-0 up at that point. We've stopped there, equalised going in. So I think it's pretty safe to say we probably would have come out with 3 points there. However, not the first time we went to Easter Road and gone 2-0 up and fluffed the game this season alone. So we are going to go into what the title of the pod is, where Rangers went wrong. And we are going to look at where Rangers went wrong this season. So if you're of a nervous disposition, I'd look away now because this is not good looking. Doug has done the painful thing and put this together. So top man, because this is just absolutely grueling to look at. So let's have a look at it. I don't know if you can all see it there, but that's the performance table. So it shows you all the teams we've played in the league this season and how we've performed against them. So if there is a tick, it's a win. If it's a red X, it's a loss. And if it's a red circle, it is a draw. It doesn't make good reading. I'll come to you first, Doug, seeing as you put this together. What was the initial thing you thought when you'd finished this piece of art, essentially?
I think it was a little bit of maybe a narrative flip in my mind, actually, because a lot of the talk has been about how we've failed against quote unquote the dross in the league. But what I think for me this kind of shows is it's not so much that the bottom half of that table. These are in table order as of the second last match day. So, the bottom half of that table are all the bottom half teams, and it kind of it starts fine at the bottom and gets worse as you go up. So it's really been those clubs that are in and around us: Hibernian, Aberdeen, St Mirren, our bogey club this season. Motherwell as well, just at sort of the mid-table there. So I think it really shows that what's happening is we're letting the clubs that are, that one step below us get closer to us, and they're taking these points away from us. We've only got clean sweeps against the bottom two teams in the league, which for Rangers is pathetic, and that's the word that I would use. We should be doing better. We have to be doing better. We can't only be winning once against the likes of Hibs if we're going to be a league winning team, because those are games that Celtic go to most of these teams and are steamrolling them. They beat Aberdeen, what was it, 5-1, 5-0 the other day,
the
other weekend. So that is, it's hard enough for there to be small gaps and small adjustments, but if we're giving away so many points, like let's say looking at this amount in Hibs, 2 wins in those 8 games. No wonder we're miles away, and that's really going to have to be where we are focusing to make the difference. We need to get in, that higher level of quality that's going to make the difference against the teams that are closer to us because we're falling so far behind.
We certainly have. And what actually is interesting to me there is teams that caused us problems last year, Ross County and St Johnstone, got a clean sweep against them, which is actually mad. Celtic, we couldn't beat them last year. We've beat them twice, drawn one, which actually we should have won that game. And obviously lost at Parkhead. Jock, any that really stand out for you there? I know it's grim reading across the board, but are there any that really stand out there that you think is quite something?
I think if you look at take the table as a whole, it just shows you the inconsistency, and that's what's plagued the season. You've seen it under Clement, the struggle to you won a game to try and get 2 games in the bounce. One was such a chore for the players, and if you look at like the Hibs and St Mirren, Aberdeen, those games, those are the ones that Motherwell again. Those are the ones you're going to have to work your socks off to earn the points at those kind of grounds. And yeah, we just clearly we didn't do that across the whole board. I mean, what more do you say? It's just that's it. It's just inconsistency, and that's what's plagued us. Anytime we get a chance to do something, we don't build on it, and that's not been this season. That's been last season and the season before when we've had the chance to build momentum, put your foot down, and drive towards something. We just can't do it. The squad hasn't been able to do it. The manager hasn't been able to drag the players over the line to do it, and that's something we've seen when Barry came in as well. Because the Kilmarnock result, we were a shambles for 2-0 down, and we've clawed it back. And I thought, right, he's good. This is it. This is going to click, and we're going to go on that run. Couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it.
Certainly right. It's actually quite strange when you do look at some of the teams you kind of, if you know you're having a bad season, the teams that you'd expect to really drop points to a lot of the time. Hearts we didn't lose to this year, unbelievably. Yes, Hearts had an absolutely atrocious start, but that's where they got their draw. That blooming Bow draw, where I think Conor Barron bossed the game in that one, where we just didn't look like scoring. They didn't look like scoring. They were happy with the draw. And for me, that's the most important result there, because you started the season, first game of the season, it's a draw. You've already set yourself behind the rest of the people challenging for the top. I say the rest, Celtic essentially, because nobody else really was going to challenge for the top. Aberdeen on that fantastic run, and went 13 in a row, wasn't it? 13 wins in a row. Obviously, we lost the first game against them. Then we won the second one, drew the one after, and then won the one after, where we absolutely annihilated them. Another strange one. Dundee United, you'd expect coming back up. You think, great, this is another bit of a bogey team for us. And actually, apart from the one draw, we actually did quite well against Dundee United, didn't we, Doug? Can you hear us there, Doug? Are you having issues with your mute?
I don't know why it's constantly sticking tonight, but I'm just having all the tech issues. Yeah, as I say, that inconsistency and ability to put runs together as well was a real issue. Just in the comments there, one of the guys asking it, did we keep a clean sheet at all, apart from Aberdeen at home? We actually kept quite a few in the first half of the season, but that started to trail off in the second half. So in the first half, we had clean sheets to Ross County, St Johnstone, Hearts at home as well, Kilmarnock at home when we beat them 6-0. So the first half of the season wasn't as bad as the second. It really did tailor away as time went on. But we were in a bit. We just couldn't get any sustained runs going. Apart from one point, I think we had about 8 games in a row. We went unbeaten with 2 draws in there. But there's defeats on either side of that run, and then it's after that, what that run ended about December, and then from then on, it just more and more things just started to creep in. We had a decent period, January, February, and then after that, it was just constant. That was when it was just constantly flipping, win, draw, or win, loss, and we just couldn't get anything going. And like Jock said, that lack of consistency just crept in more and more and more as the season went on. I mean, you could take like some of those draws, for example, three of those draws are post split when the titles go on anyway. So I think it's the losses that are the real thing to me. Like you say, losing to Hibs, Motherwell, and Kilmarnock, St Mirren, in February, March, and is a big period at the end of the season. And again, it kind of harks back in a way to that post December slump that we would have after under Gerrard as well. We kind of did the same thing here this season.
Yeah, it's not totally alien in some respects, is it? I think obviously the one to Gerrard, we were dropping kind of less points per se. The thing that was quite frustrating here, Jock, was, we started the season, we had the Copeland works, then we're going to overrun, we were told October, you're thinking, oh God, this isn't good. You just thought going to Hampden, a horrible stadium. Our record at Hampden was terrible in the cup competitions. Hampden was fine, wasn't it, Jock? Apart from the Dynamo game, but then we can put that down to a terrible referee decision, eh?
Yeah, I think that's another thing. Sort of, they started the board at this point. The club starts the season under pressure, so at that point, you're hoping the club, the team, and the manager give you that caveat and try and galvanize everybody at that point, take the pressure off the board. But they weren't able to do that either, were they? The bad results started creeping in, then consistently came straight first game of the season. But yeah, Hampden did its purpose, served as well. Our record was okay, considering. But the Dynamo game was one of those freak ones. The referee played a big part, didn't he, with the sending off? That again, in our refereeing decision, granted it's not one of ours this time, but it's somebody else. And that kind of just sort of set us up, I think, personally, for the rest of the season, because it's all we've seen, really, inconsistency and poor refereeing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, like Doug was saying, there was never really that consistent run, bar I think end of October, November time into December, we actually did okay. That's where we got the draw with Dundee United, the kind of only real smudge there. We didn't really concede any goals either at that point. We were starting to look a bit more solid. That's when Clement said that you'll start to see the real Rangers. And then we crashed a 2-1 defeat at St Mirren, followed by a draw at Motherwell. But then almost, Doug, like the pressure was off a little bit, because at that point, we just lost the League Cup final where, essentially we lost it to a bad referee decision. Yes, I know that, the penalty has to be scored, but at that point of the game, nobody was scoring. You could tell nobody was scoring. It was a massive opportunity. So obviously the heads go down, we lose to St Mirren, draw with Motherwell, and then we absolutely batter Celtic. Don't we, Doug? 3-0 at Ibrox in the New Year game.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that points to when I said earlier that we needed more quality. Someone, apologies, I forget who it was, but someone said in the comments, "Oh, it's a mentality issue more than a quality issue," and I think it's both, because you could see, and this has been a problem for a while, that we go into certain games. The European ones being the main ones of note, and play like a completely different team. Now, part of that is down to style of play, in terms of the opposition and being able to maybe suit the continental model better with some of our players. But at the same time, I think that this season in particular, it was noted a couple of times, both by some opposition managers, and I think, Barry said it as well, that clubs were no longer afraid playing Rangers. And that led to a lot more teams coming out a bit more and actually attacking us because they felt like they could win games. And in games like that, I was looking at those games going, right, this team isn't sitting back as much as we always sometimes complain about. They're coming out and attacking us. And so, we should be dealing with that the same way we would in European games when we've had tough matches where teams have attacked us, but we've managed, we've held on, and we've gotten good victories in some of these games. Um, so there's certainly a mentality issue. Barry seemed to be able to um, help that a little bit, but ultimately, I think as the 3 months of his tenure went on, it was just the same. We were just seeing the same again, but slightly worse as we started losing all these goals and everything else. So there is a mentality issue there. I firmly believe, certainly for a core of the team anyway, that there's much more to come from some of these players, and that there is better performances that can be getting out of them by the right manager. But at the same time, I do still think we lack quality. As I said earlier, we have regressed. We're closer now to the teams right behind us than we are to Celtic. I think in terms of quality in some areas, we spent the entire season without a proper left-sided winger, having to play players out of position in there, and we kind of were playing with a 10, but they weren't really performing or acting the way that I really expected from that position. Got lost an awful lot because of the way we played in terms of play a lot of long cross balls, which was just bypassing some of our players. And I think we saw those changes again when Barry came in and changed the style of play slightly. You saw the emergence of some of those players that were getting, I think, forgotten about due to the style of play. So there's things like that to address. So the quality issues, some mentality issues, and then like a lot of people have said, having a successful style of play as well would help, and players that fit that style, and that will take a bit of time to do. You can fix mentality, I think, fairly quickly. You can build that up. Um, you can change your mentality of a single game. I think if you get a right performance and result, and then the team galvanise from that and can push on, if someone's got the ability to do that managerially, whereas your tactics, your quality, those things will take a bit of time because I've seen people put out tweets, "Oh, I only want these 4 players to stay." And it's like, well, we're not going to be buying 26 players, nor will we be capable of getting rid of the 26 you don't want there anymore. So I said it last season, and I'll say it again, going into the new season. There will be players at Rangers next season that some people don't want to still be there, but I do think that there's certain players. Barami, it's a big one for me that we did not see much from him this season. He started well, but dropped off a cliff quite early. And I do think there's more in there than what we saw. And so I hope that I would imagine he's potentially one that could stay. He's got longer in his contract. Um, he's one that we might be able to get something out of under someone else, but that'll be part of the skill for the new manager to go through and decide who out of these players can I get something out of, keep those ones, and then sell the ones he thinks he can.
I do agree with Badrami, Doug. I said about Raskin years ago. I was like, there is a player in there, you can see it. Might just need a bit of time to settle. It's frustrating though, because in some games, I'm not saying he doesn't look like he's not bothered, but you know there can be more there, but you never know what's going on. There could be something going on in the background. Guy in a new country, things like that. We've seen it before for players, but
sometimes you just need a year to settle, like you say.
Yeah.
Even if you take Dessers, like Dessers had a pretty good first season, and goal scoring wise, and a lot of people obviously still aren't happy with him now. But this season, Dessers has improved almost every single metric. He scored more goals. His conversion rate is higher. He's missed less, although he still has missed a few. But the gap between him and the players behind him in terms of missed, he's still the highest. I think he was still highest in the league for shots missed at 21. But Ida was behind him with 19. That's a much smaller gap to last season where he was like 32 odd missed, and then it was Shanklin behind him with 20 something. So he's improved in pretty much every measure. Maybe still not good enough for Rangers, but second season he got better, and that's something I think we can see from someone like Bramy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely Dessers definitely has improved, but it's still top of the top misses. But no, I agree. He's definitely put the work in. I think interestingly for them stats you pulled there, Doug, on that lovely chart. Like you say, teams did open up, went at us a little bit more when Barry came in. They knew we were a wounded animal. That's why we were conceding an extra 2 goals a game, because they knew they could get at us, and we were struggling to kind of push out. But yeah, no, it's. I want to say it's interesting chart. Thank you for putting it together there, Doug, but doesn't make for great reading. But there we go. Well, talking about statistics in the league this season, you can have a look at the disciplinary charts. Now, for fouls, I don't know how they work this out again, but for yellow cards to fouls, the ratio for that, it's some quite interesting reading. So obviously you'd understand the majority of the yellow cards dished out are probably going to go to teams down towards the bottom of the league, luckily, because when teams get frustrated, they might foul more, this, that, and the other. Not every foul does warrant a yellow card, though, but some interesting stats have been looked at where it does appear that when you look at the kind of overall stats for the league this year, so for example, most penalties that went to Celtic, least penalties that went to Rangers. Penalty to Rangers had to be dusted off the game before last, where we actually got a penalty, which wasn't awarded by the referee, by the way. It was awarded by VAR that did that. But the team with the least bookings in the league is Celtic, weirdly. Least red cards in the league, Celtic. Now, you can kind of understand that to a degree when you are a team that's up at the top. You're generally stronger than a lot of the other sides, so you would generally probably overpower them. But when you compare that to the kind of EPL, obviously Liverpool have won the title, but they sit 5th. So they have around 62 yellow cards, 2 yellows to a red, and 1 red card. And all this when you break it down. So on their kind of points, they were on 70 for that. But it's quite interesting. I'm not saying that anything's happening in particular, but you do look at certain statistics and stats and find it quite strange, because obviously Celtic being number 1 in that kind of I guess you'd call it fair play league, Ross County are 2nd, which is a team that's the complete other end of the table with 52 yellow cards, which is just incredible. Celtic sitting on 30 points, 30 yellow cards, no reds. Unbelievable. And most penalties for in the league. We've got the least penalties against. That is a strange one. You get anomalous seasons, and you do get anomalous seasons. We've seen that when we went on that kind of penalty run, where penalty to Rangers was getting banned about. And the funny thing was with that's kind of stayed with us, hasn't it, Jock? You look at the kind of penalty to Rangers thing, and we always say, "Oh, penalty Rangers, what a shock!" And I'd one in a year. Twitter was alive when we got a penalty, wasn't it?
I know. Yeah, it's like you say, it did had to get the wee meme of the wee guy dancing, had to get dusted off. I think for a lot of the Twitter and Facebook accounts, and yeah, like I think the way we play this season and last season has probably dictated that. I think if you look back at the Gerrard era and the style he played, the way we played football, we had wingers bursting into the box and chopping and cutting inside, and there was more opportunity, there was more risk for the defending team, so we were getting that reward. Don't really play that with that intensity anymore. We're not really hitting the byline and cutting in, and we're not, there's not players running late into the box. So I think the opportunities has gone down. Not to say we should only have 1 penalty this season. We should definitely have had a few more. In terms of yellow cards, you look at the last Old Firm, captain for our team was running about and fouling left, right, and centre and giving off the referee and didn't get booked at all. And then Bailey Rice came on and first tackle got booked wee things. Is that a respect thing? Is that the referees being lenient for the senior player there? I don't know. It's one way of looking at it, I guess. It's just, I suppose you could say it's like, swings and roundabouts and that. You just, as you say, you could have anomaly seasons where you could be higher in one stat and lower in another. But I definitely think there is. It just doesn't seem to marry up and outweigh the two. There's definitely, if you look at statistically wise, it just clearly looks like there's a favoritism there amongst the refs and stuff. I do understand Celtic's style of play and the way teams set up against them probably dictates they're not having to make challenges as much. It's the other way around. Teams are tackling them and stuff like that. I do grant that, but there still should be games where, particularly against us, they should be getting cards and making tackles again you could say that teams lower down the league, the players' standard isn't there, so the quality of tackling is going to be poor as well, which obviously draws the fouls and pushes up their stats. But do you really want to go down the conspiracy theory route as much as some people do?
Oh God, no! Oh God, no! Doug, do you have any opinion on it? Obviously, when you're a well-drilled, well-oiled team, probably don't need to foul as much. If overpowered teams, you're a few goals up, you probably take foot off the gas a little bit. Is that what this is, or do you think it's a little bit anomalous?
I think the yellow card part is probably the more anomalous one. The penalties, I think, makes perfect sense because they absolutely dominate teams. Spend most of the time in their opposition boxes attacking, and do basically all the things I wish we would do in terms of playing fast, pulling teams out, and making defenses make mistakes and bad tackles. So the fact they've got a lot of penalties makes perfect sense because that's exactly what we got when we were doing that as well. Like we've become cumbersome and slow and passing around the box rather than tackling in pushing into the box. So it doesn't surprise me that our penalties have gone down. You could, I think, make an argument that the depth of the disparity is perhaps something to question. Again, looking at the fact that a lot of our penalties come from VAR decisions, seem to get very few that are just given on the pitch. So there could be something in the level of disparity, but the fact that for the penalties anyway, the fact that Celtic get a lot of penalties, I'm kind of happy with that in that it tracks with what I would expect given the way that they play. The number of the yellow card ones again, particularly in some games, I've seen tackles that I don't understand how they didn't get bookings. The number of fouls they make per card. I think it's somewhere approaching 11 fouls per yellow card, and the closest to them is Kilmarnock, who are about 6.6 fouls per yellow card. So they're getting away with almost double the amount of fouls of the team that is next to them. Never mind, I think Aberdeen are the lowest. So it's almost 3 times as many fouls they're getting away with them. So again, it's just that disparity. Now again, that might come from the level of quality that they're showing. That, like you say, they just don't need to commit fouls because they're just good enough to win games. And that tracks with they've got a lot of victories in the season by significant margins. But yeah, I think the thing that would maybe give me cause for concern is the disparity between rather than the stats themselves, because ultimately they are the dominant team in the league by a distance. So I can see why some of these stats would track in the directions that they've gone. But I would wonder, is the gap really that big for things like that? Because again, we talk about how poor the refs are, so they should be making mistakes against Celtic as well. Celtic should be getting yellow cards that aren't yellow cards. They should be getting players sent off occasionally that aren't red cards. So those things should be affecting them as well. So you have to wonder, like as I say, is that where the concern lies rather than the sort of stats themselves?
And some would have to believe via loads of spreadsheets and screen grabs of bad clips that there are patterns of assistance which are all aimed in a big Masonic conspiracy for Glasgow Rangers. Well, you know what? Whoever we're paying for that, it's not really paying off for us. I might want a refund there. Trade Descriptions Act. So thanks for your comments, Doug. Jock as well. It's been absolutely brilliant chatting to you two tonight about everything that's been going on. We can't just have a quiet weekend. It's the last game of the blooming season, for goodness sake. We can't just have a quiet one, can we, lads? But thank you ever so much for coming on. So cheers, Jock. And cheers to yourself, Doug. No worries. And cheers to yourself as well, Doug. Glad you got sorted out there.
Very much.
And cheers for the chart there as well. Also, a big shout out to Connor Barron and John Sutter, who got called up for the Scotland squad against Liechtenstein. So that's good for them. That will boost their profiles. And of course, don't forget, the football may be over, but every night will still be a Rangers Journal night. So we still have lots of content coming over the summer, and that includes from the Ibrox channel as well. There's a new manager on the horizon, a takeover, transfer business, and European qualifiers. So also Billy just had a great sit down with Kevin Thompson, which is on YouTube now. If you haven't watched it, do give it a watch. Some good stories there. We have our Brown Brogue series where we look at managers and get the inside scoop from experts who have followed them. We see if they could be ideal for Rangers. So do give that a check out as well. And there'll be loads more to come. So every night is a Rangers Journal night. Take care, everyone. And we'll see you later on in the week. Cheery bye.